why planes don't fly over the Pacific Ocean. It's most of the time. People love talking about the mysteries of the Pacific, like the Bermuda Triangle cousin over there, the Pacific Mystery Zone, or wild stories of planes vanishing without a trace. The rumors swirl about alien abductions, secret government experiments, lost magnetic fields throwing navigation haywire, and even giant sea monsters. Sounds fascinating, right? But before we drift too far into the realm of sci-fi, let's get real. The truth behind why most planes don't just zoom straight across the middle of the Pacific Ocean is grounded in facts that are actually pretty fascinating and way more comforting than any conspiracy. So let's unravel the real story. First, let's talk geography and fuel. The Pacific is enormous, covering about a third of all Earth's surface. It is stretching over 155 million square kilometers. It's not just wide, it's deep, averaging thousands of feet down. When pilots and flight planners look at a trip from, say, Los Angeles to Tokyo, the shortcut over the middle of the Pacific actually ends up being one of the longest paths. Remember, Earth is round. So, what looks like a straight line on a flat map is actually a curved arc, the Great Circle Route. Sometimes that arc curves way north or way south, hovering near landmasses like Alaska or the Aleutians or Hawaii, or even over parts of Siberia or Canada, depending on wind, weather, and traffic. Flying that way uses less fuel compared to crossing the most remote, empty middle of the ocean. Because it's shorter in distance and safer, pilots can use diversion airports if something goes wrong. Let's unpack that diversion airports idea, because it's big. If you're cruising over open water and your plane suddenly develops an engine problem or a medical emergency happens on board, then the rules, especially something called ETOPS, Extended Range Twin Engine Operational Performance Standards, require you be able to reach an alternate airport within a certain time. For twin-engine jets historically, that might have been within 60 minutes. Now in many cases, it's 120 minutes, or even 180, depending on the plane and certification. But the key idea is, you want to be able to get to land fast if you have to. Flying above a stretch of ocean so far from land that you can't reach any airport in, say, 2 hours, even in a single-engine glider scenario, is not allowed. That's why airlines prefer routes that thread closer to land masses, even if skies look calm and inviting over the deep blue. Speaking of the skies, let's talk about one of the biggest troublemakers when it comes to flying over the Pacific, the weather. And not just any weather. We're talking about some of the most unpredictable, moody, and downright dramatic conditions you can imagine. The Pacific is basically Mother Nature's playground for powerful jet streams, seasonal typhoons, hurricanes, and massive weather systems that can shift in the blink of an eye. Imagine you're thousands of feet in the air, cruising peacefully, when suddenly you hit a patch of wind so strong they could shove the plane slightly off course. Or maybe you run into turbulence that feels like a roller coaster ride you never signed up for. And storms? Oh, they can pop up right in the middle of nowhere, sometimes far away from radar coverage or immediate help. That's why pilots and flight planners are constantly glued to real-time weather data, historical flight patterns, and maps showing everything from the Pacific High to the Aleutian Low, and even the Intertropical Convergence Zone, basically areas known for tricky weather. They have to make judgment calls. Do we go north to catch a nice tailwind and save fuel, or do we swing further south to dodge bumpy air? It's not just about comfort. It's about safety and staying within reach of emergency landing options if something unexpected happens. Flying over the Pacific isn't like cruising over land where airports are sprinkled all over the map. Out there, it's just you, the clouds, and thousands of miles of open water. So, if a storm decides to throw a tantrum in your path, you definitely want the option to reroute towards safety. And here's another thing, fuel. Now, don't get me wrong, long-haul jets are basically flying marvels, but their fuel tanks aren't some kind of bottomless pit. Every drop of fuel adds weight, and the heavier the plane, the less efficient it becomes. It's a tricky balancing act. You want enough fuel to make the trip comfortably, plus a generous safety reserve in case of unexpected detours or weather issues. But here's the catch. If you start thinking about flying way out into the middle of the Pacific with nothing but endless ocean beneath you, the rules change. You can't just pull over at some floating gas station to refuel. That means the plane would have to carry extra fuel right from the start, just in case. And that extra fuel? Yep, it makes the aircraft heavier, which then burns even more fuel. It's like carrying a massive backpack for a hike. You need more water because the trip is long, but carrying that water makes you slower and more tired. To make such a trip work, airlines might have to use bigger aircraft to handle the weight or sacrifice passenger and cargo space to make room for the extra fuel. But that's not exactly a win for business. Fewer seats and less cargo mean less money coming in. And at the end of the day, airlines are looking for the most efficient, profitable routes, not ones that drain the budget just to cross a big stretch of blue. So, in simple terms, crossing the Pacific without any land in sight sounds epic, but in airline math, it's often just not worth the extra weight, fuel, and cost. Now, as I mentioned ETOPS earlier, that's a whole world of rules, but basically airlines must follow very tight standards to fly long distances over remote areas. The further you go from suitable airports, the stricter those standards become. Pilots, maintenance crews, dispatchers, all have to be certified. The aircraft need redundant systems, precise tracking, emergency procedures, and equipment up to snuff. That's easier to manage when you're closer to land. You're always within reach of assistance in case of any hiccup. Let's talk about this so-called mystery one more time. People love making wild guesses, things like, there's a secret magnetic force in the Pacific, or compasses just go crazy out there. You'll even find some random blogs claiming there are leftover magnetic fields messing with navigation, almost like a sci-fi movie. Sounds cool, right? But here's the truth, it's not nearly that spooky. Modern airplanes don't rely on old-school compasses like pirates did. Instead, they use super accurate tools like GPS satellites, high-tech sensors, and built-in navigation computers. Even if one system stops working, there are backups ready to kick in instantly. Pilots aren't sitting there guessing which way is west. They've got live satellite data, constant radio contact, and even autopilot systems that can fly the plane across an entire ocean if needed. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. Flight routes are carefully planned, so planes are never too far from communication signals or satellite coverage. Pilots always have another route in mind if something changes, so they're not stuck in the middle of nowhere with no plan. The whole mystery is fun for movies and conspiracy theories, but in real life, it's just advanced technology quietly doing its job while we enjoy our in-flight snacks. There's also a psychological piece at play. When you see a flight path that loops north toward Alaska or over Hawaii, even though it feels indirect, it's often actually a great circle route setup. On a standard flat map, the loop looks weird, but in three-dimensional space, it slices across the curve of Earth. That's where pilots can harness wind patterns like the jet stream, cut distance, and save fuel. So you might ask, why don't they go straight over the Pacific? But that straight isn't straight, and it'd be neither efficient nor safe given the geography, fuel, and infrastructure constraints. One more note, technology is pushing the boundaries. Newer aircraft, like updated ultra-long-range versions of the Boeing 777 or Airbus A350, can carry more fuel and fly longer without stops. That means airlines can open up routes that previously were off limits, like non-stop flights from Singapore to New York over the North Pole or LA to Bangalore. Even then, they still plan carefully around weather, jet streams, and alternate airports. So we are seeing more direct oceanic crossings, but they're still high-altitude, high-tech, highly regulated affairs, not random adventures through the middle of the Pacific. I hope this friendly breakdown lets you see just how carefully aviation engineers, planners, and pilots thread their way over, and sometimes around the Pacific. It's a mix of careful science, smart logistics, and modern tech, making every flight safe and efficient. And while the ocean remains mysterious in its beauty, the stories of stranded planes or paranormal distortions aren't part of the real picture, just tales to capture our imagination. So, whenever you see a flight that detours over the map or feels zigzaggy over water, remember, there's a very good, very practical reason behind it. It's not magic, it's smart, it's safe. And yes, the real journey is even more fascinating than any legend. So, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the so-called mystery of the Pacific. Turns out, it's less about creepy compass tricks and more about modern tech keeping flights super safe. But hey, the ocean is still massive and fascinating, so there's always more to explore. What about you? Do you think there are still secrets hiding out there? Or is it all science and no mystery? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more cool stories like this.